the cuts are going to bite 40 to 50% across the board. So never mind the public, which of course they're going to suffer as well as the practitioners. It's a big switch and swathe out of everything that's been happening since the Second World War. And I think what the bar may well do now, and I've been advocating they should take some action, collective action. Now, whether it's going on strike or some other form of collective action, they have to stand up for the principles that we've been trying to, as I say, since the Second World War. It was a fundamental part of the welfare state. The NHS, education, and legal welfare. And if the lawyers don't stand up now, they will decimate it completely. It just won't exist. And I think some lawyers are really on the brink right now, and they are contemplating, days of action. Now, it may take different forms, but I think it's about time. I do blame the government. I do blame Grayling for what is happening, but he inherited a situation started by the Labour government. So it's not just confined to the coalition. And even before that, there had been attacks on legal aid. So it's a process that's been going on for 10, 15 years. So the campaign against that has been waged certainly more vociferously by me over the last 5 years. And I think we've got to a stage now whereby the bar recognises, and people in publicly funded work, practitioners, recognise that Grayling's not shifting.
If you could give Grayling one piece of advice to introduce one reform into our legal system, what would you ask him to change?
Well, I want him to change the policy, because actually it's a much wider issue than legal aid, plainly, because we're dealing with welfare cuts, we're dealing with an attitude towards the vulnerable, which is as if they're to blame for the situation we're in. And I don't accept that the economic situation should be laid at the door of those people who are certainly not responsible and are certainly most vulnerable. There are other ways of solving these problems. For example, the Robin Hood tax, FTT, financial transaction tax. Other ways of raising money. Which government in the world is standing out against that? The European governments are in favour of raising money to fund public welfare. The one government who's taking Europe to court is this government, the coalition government. George Osborne is challenging that tax because, of course, what they're trying to do is to support, if you like, the city, those who've got and profited from a bonus culture. They're the ones who are surviving. And I'm very unhappy about that. And so I think the piece of advice for Grayling is that if you're, in the Ministry of Justice, how about delivering some?
Today marked the opening of your new chambers. Tell us a little bit
Yeah, a very special day today for me. I've been in the business for, that is, being an advocate for over 40 years, 45 years. So during that time, I've been in a number of chambers, but for most of it, I set up an earlier set of chambers called TUCs. And through the advent of cuts to legal aid, we have found ourselves in a position of having to reorganise, reconfigure and think again about how we're going to work. And my own feeling was that if we're going to survive as barristers doing publicly funded work, we have to have a new model. The new model is going to be really an electronic hub in a very compact space, and you're in it right now.
What's the biggest change from TUC chambers? Well,
the biggest change will be, to begin with, is that there won't be 70 people in one building with staff obviously to serve them, but a huge building. So we won't be occupying a huge building anymore. We'll have much more compact premises, maybe 1 or 2 rooms with 1 or 2 staff, and then you have an electronic hub and people begin to service themselves.